Good evening. We are on Ottawa Designers, and I'm here with Della again because there's a part of Della that we don't know. She was in the military for many years. Now she's a retired military ex-woman that was in this. And I'd like to know more about women in military. So can you give us a little bit of the history of your family in the military, why you got into it, and why you got out?
Yeah, so kind of an interesting story. My great grandfather was in World War II. My grandfather, who's 85 now, he was in as well. He did like Congo and that time frame. And then my mom joined in 89. And then I joined in 2003. So when I actually wanted to go to school for fashion design, but I wanted to go to Ryerson University, but it was like not even affordable. My mom was a single mom, like it wasn't even an option. Back then things were a bit different. And also I was like really, really bad in school, like really bad in school. And I didn't have like the best grades. And I had this thing in my head that I know it's going to sound bad when I first say this, but I had this thing in my head that like if you weren't smart and you couldn't do anything else, then you joined the military.
I've heard that before many times, which is
Oh,
so mind-boggling to me because to be in the military, you have to have so many skills in order to thrive and succeed.
well, yeah, and that's it. In order to thrive and succeed, for sure, you definitely have to have like a level of aptitude in different areas. So what was interesting is when I had done the test, the things that I actually wanted to go join the military for that I was interested in, they actually weren't an option that you could join right into. It's something you had to kind of go into once you were in. But I ended up scoring really, really high on my aptitude test. And so they offered me communications. But at the time, they convinced me that it was linguistics. And I was going to be learning all these languages. And I was so excited. And that was not it at all.
Yeah.
My first like year in, it was like first and second year university math.
Which, it doesn't surprise me that they would put you in a communication field because you've been in public relations. Your whole career is discussing things with all sorts of people and stuff. So that actually makes perfect sense. They just didn't get the linguistic aspect correct.
Oh, and the thing is that I didn't have any of that before I joined, right? I was only
Oh,
18. So yeah, it was interesting. They kind of paved me for that, I guess.
interesting.
So being a woman in the military is, well, I can't speak to now. Okay. I mean, a lot of things have definitely changed. So I can't speak to it now because I'm not in anymore. But I will say like, there were definitely a lot of challenges. You were not seen as an equal. You were expected to look like an equal. So that means no makeup, hair tight, no body structure. You were expected to be like a man, but you were never treated equal. So the opportunities were definitely not the same. And there was much less women than men. So for example, when I was on a deployment, there was like 20 females to 280 men.
Wow.
On that deployment. And actually, interesting fact, after that deployment, only 2 females are still in.
Wow.
Any were medically released or decided to get out after. It can be really, really tough on women in general for a lot of different reasons. And like I say, I speak to my time in, not necessarily how it might be today, but lots of sexual harassment, lots of belittling or making you feel stupid or less than, or like a lot of stuff like that happens.
So then how did you get into the military? So you had the idea, you said, I'm going to go into it. What would be the steps to get into the military?
So I guess I was really lucky because I had a family history. So it's everything I knew. I was in airborne cadets. I was very familiar with kind of that lifestyle, moving all the time. So I just went to a recruiting office, and we have one in Ottawa. I went to the one in Kingston at the time, and expressed interest. And then I went and did the testing. So you have to do an aptitude test, which is like three kind of levels, or three categories. One is almost like a thesaurus. I don't even know how I passed it, to be honest, because I could speak English on most days. And one was like spatial, and I think one might have been problem solving or math. I can't even remember now. But you have to do that test. It's timed, and after that, then you have to do medical to make sure that you're physically fit, don't have any issues or concerns. At the time, actually, my ketones were really high for whatever reason, probably because I was young and really energetic. And so I had actually failed that. And so they said, like, go take 2 weeks, eat a lot, don't do too much, get your ketones up, and you should be fine. So that was fine. And then you have to do the fitness test.
Okay. What's the fitness test?
So if I don't remember now, but there was definitely like sit-ups, push-ups, running, and hand grip, I think.
Okay.
There was like, so that you had to have a minimum in each category to be fit enough to get in.
Interesting.
And then you go to boot camp and you're totally
rewired,
built back up, and the whole nine.
Okay. And now, so that's how to get in. How do you get out of the military?
Yeah, it's funny. So a lot of people, there's kind of okay, so the military is built, in my opinion, off scare tactics, and like you could get charged for pretty much anything in the military. Conduct on becoming is like one of the go-to things you can basically get charged, and that's basically for anything. So there's a lot of scare tactics, and then so when you're in, you sign you sign like a contract, and you don't really know better. You think that you're bound by that. So like if you sign like a 20-year contract, it's like, oh, you're not getting out before 20 years. Like you have to do those 20 years, but really that's not the case. I end up being medically released because I got to a point where I had hit like a rock bottom, and I was deemed like unfit to be in the military anymore. And that does happen with quite a few people, especially people that have gone through like a lot of traumas or PTSD or deployments and stuff like that. Other people, some people decide to move on. Your body can only handle so much, and your brain can only handle so much. And I think that you get to a point sometimes where you need to move on. So that you can, kind of regain yourself back. And if that's the case, then normally you can just put in a release request, and it does often take several months, sometimes longer, because sometimes they need to retain you because they might be low in that position or something. But I mean, you want to leave, you can get out.
Okay. So now we touched very quickly, you mentioned the dangers of being a woman in the military, sexual harassment, rape, demeaning behavior. Can you explain to us what the dangers truly are and elaborate a little bit more on the dangers of being a woman in the military when you were there?
Yeah, it's tough. Sometimes you feel like you're one of the boys, everything's fine. There used to be this kind of mentality, we called it the boys club. And they were like the attractive hockey player, golf player boys, and they could basically get away with anything and get out of work all the time. And so there is like kind of cliques. It's tough too, because if rumors go around about you, like I had some rumors go around about me, and then even the females didn't want to be my friend.
Wow.
And that's really tough, because it's one thing to be dealing with being degraded by men, but it's another when you can't even have a female companion to lean on. And I think that makes it even harder. So sometimes when things are being said about you and rumors start, like it's kind of like high school, and then you have no friends. You don't have the females, you don't have males, you're kind of all by yourself. It can be really lonely.
Yeah.
For sure.
That would be your warnings, is it's very lonely. It can be lonely. You can have these cliquey situations. How do you prevent something like that?
You really can't. I mean, unless you can fly under the radar without anyone noticing you. So that means do not be attractive. Okay. You absolutely absolutely cannot be attractive if you want to fly under the radar. We call it being the gray man. So it's like you kind of get by. No one really notices you. That's the only way you can kind of get through your career without anything happening, I suppose. The name of it was called the gray man.
Wow.
But yeah, it's tough.
That is tough. So if something was to happen to you in the military, what are the recourses? How do you get help?
So it's different now. Speaking with a lot of people, there are a lot of things in place now, like almost like a zero, what is it? Zero tolerance
Yeah.
for, discrimination and sexual misconduct. And, there's like a zero tolerance. And I think my understanding is they have quite a few things set up now so that you can feel confident and comfortable going to the right people and telling them what's going on. And I've heard a lot of success stories from that.
Right.
Back when it was me, or when I was in, that wasn't really an option. It was like, you just shut up and you continue on, and you deal with it on your own. Like there wasn't really a good recall or resource for that. And I think that's why. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but a few years ago we had the sexual misconduct class action lawsuit in Canada. And there was I want to say there was like 5 to 10,000 women from the military, either previous or current, that were a part of that. And we did win it. And we won the settlement. And so they had to make changes. I mean, you were hearing nonstop about high senior ranking members, getting charged and dismissed for different types of stuff like that.
That's insane. So now PTSD and depression are huge factors for military people in general. Why do you think that is?
I think that, so every person, so I always say, like, it doesn't matter what situation, like what a person specifically went through, the symptoms are all the same. So something that might break me might not break the girl next door or the guy next door, but something that affects them might not affect me. So we're all made so differently, what it is that we can handle,
Yeah.
and what we can kind of process properly. But there does come a time where, there are things that might happen. When I was in Croatia, I had gotten jumped by 5 men and beat up there. And that, I think that was a cracking point for me.
Yeah.
And
Sorry you went through that.
it's I mean, it's long in history now, but I think that, like, these, whatever it is that happens, sometimes there's a lot of things that happen, but there's just that one thing that's like the point. And at that point, once you crack, it's hard because you have to rebuild yourself up. And that's normally when PTSD is kind of diagnosed at that point, because it's something that now it's like with you, and nothing you do helps you kind of move forward from it. So a lot, and we do get sent to, there's a few different mental health facility centers in Canada, and the one that I went to was in Guelph, and that was Homewood. And I was there for a few months, and I will say, like, it was night and day, like what I was able to process and gain from my time there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so important to have those resources, especially now, because it's just almost everyone has these depressions and PTSD. And as you mentioned, we all have a different chip, that you could be the most normal housewife or, a government worker, whatever. And there's this one thing that happens, and that's what makes you snap. Or you could be somebody in the military that's, seen 100 deaths and whatnot, and you're completely fine until you see a cat die or something like that. And that's what triggered you.
Yeah.
So what would be your pros and cons to being in the military?
There's a lot for both. There's a lot of pros, and often, like, I don't get to highlight on that because of so many negative things that happened in my experience. But there are a lot of pros. I will say that anyone getting out of high school and you don't know what you want to do, go do 3 years. Go at least go do your 3 years, because boot camp made me learn how to be an adult. It was like, although it was absolutely awful, it was amazing for me
Okay.
and my growth.
Why was it amazing?
Because they teach you, like, you don't come out of high school knowing structure, knowing discipline, knowing like how to finance. You don't come out of school knowing all this. You come out of school, you're still a baby.
Yeah.
And so it's like they teach you how to be an adult.
Okay.
It's very strict, but it's really good for personal development. And so between boot camp and like the first 3 years, one, you're not spending money on school, not knowing what you want to do.
Yeah.
So you're making money, you're helping the country, you're learning a trade that you can always use later. You're learning how to become a proper adult and add to society, but faster.
Yeah.
I think like for kids, especially where they may have been where I was, where they just felt like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, or I'm not good at anything. It's a great kind of start to your life.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's secure. You get a pension for life.
That was my next question. Exactly. Do you get a pension even if you do the 3 years?
No, like you have to, I believe it's a minimum of 10 years.
Okay.
For a pension, but still you'll get return of contributions for any years, and which would help with their education if they go to school or something, right?
Yeah.
Plus they would make money while they were in.
But there's some university classes that you can take and it's paid for by the military, no?
That's a bit of a misconception.
Okay.
So if you were to apply to RMC, which specifically for, I believe it's like you owe, so if you were to do like 4-year degree, I think you owe the military like
5 years or something.
5 years, 6 years, something like that.
My dad went to RMC actually.
So that's one route in terms of actually paid education. So here's a good example. Because I didn't end up getting linguistics like I thought I was going to, I wanted to take Arabic. I think being in communications, we did have a linguistics department. I just didn't work in it. And I really wanted to take Arabic, and they denied it. And they said, tell us how it benefits us, not how it benefits you. Right. And so I did, and I tried to, showcase that, and it was denied again. So I had to pay for it myself. So like, no courses I wanted to take that were ever covered. If the military didn't feel it was specifically beneficial to them, which is what you have to prove, then they didn't approve it.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So then are there any classes that they don't offer, or is pretty much every sort of topic covered within, like, is there medicine, is there law, is there all of that, or are there certain programs that are just not offered in the military?
So the military doesn't like offer any, like, you don't go to college through the military unless you go to RMC specifically. You do what's called trades training, and if there's something specific that you need a degree for, you'd have to get that degree before coming in.
Okay.
You do, however, I know a lot of people have gotten like big, like, well, $20,000 or $30,000 signing bonuses coming in with a trade. So like if you went to school to be a nurse and then you want to come in the military as like a medical technician or anything like that, like I know there have often been, depending on the situation, signing bonuses, especially military police. I know for years and years, if you went to school for police foundations, you got your diploma there, you could come into the military and get a signing bonus after you complete your trade training and start. So there's definitely some stuff there available. I do think that like anybody who does, gets their 10 years or more, like I do think that it's really nice being able to be a bit more stress-free later in life and being able to retire young. Like my mom retired like 5 years ago, and that's doing like 30 some years in, and she's like only turning 60 this year. She's got this amazing pension for the rest of her life. Her medical all covered for their dental, like, so there are definitely perks, and you can guarantee being able to retire at a certain age versus like, my husband, he works in the creative industry, and there's never been a pension option or anything like that. So we've always had to put money aside specifically for him, and kind of he's going to have to work for a lot longer, right?
Yeah.
So there are definitely some benefits.
That's the pros. Now, what would be the cons?
I think a lot of misconceptions. I think that, like, obviously, any company wants to put their best foot forward, right, and give you all the pros. But unless you've been there and kind of experienced it, it's hard to see all the internal workings. There's a lot of scare tactics. Like, anytime I'd ever be called into the office, I'd be shitting my pants before I even got in there, because I was, my God, what am I going to get charged with? I'm going to have to owe like a lot of money. I'm going to have to do, discipline. So like what we call it, change parade, or I'm going to have to go work in the kitchen all weekend. Or so there's a lot of discipline.
Wow.
A lot of ways to kind of get in trouble. I remember I wore lip chap, military issued lip chap to work because my lips were so chapped. And I remember my boss at the time yelled at me for wearing lipstick, which I wasn't, and sent me to the bathroom to go take it off. And I was showing him like it's military issued lip chap. It's just really red. And
you have nice chapped lips that made them become red. Ouch.
He just would not acknowledge that he was wrong. He just kept being like, go take it off now. And like, I didn't even know what to do. I just started bawling in the bathroom. And one of the female military people I didn't know had walked in at the time. And she was like, oh my God, like, what's wrong? And I was explaining to her, and she was like, oh my God, just don't do anything and just go back, and he won't say anything, because he just doesn't want to be wrong.
He can't lose face because he's now made that comment. So he can't be wrong because he's your superior, and you're the subordinate.
Eggshells all the time in your career. And I think like anybody who's ever had to walk on eggshells, even in their home or around.
Terrible.
Yeah. It's an awful feeling. And so it's really hard sometimes to not know what you're going into.
Yeah.
The other thing is everything is urgent. It's like, you have to do it now. You have to do it fast. And then
that'd be good for me.
But then you're going to sit and wait.
Okay. Got it.
This minute, but now you're done. Okay, now sit and wait with it for the next 3 days. Like, it's hurry up and wait. That's kind of
got it. So now, what doors have opened for you since being in the military?
That's a tricky question. So my specific, what I did in the military, which I can't talk about, but what I did was not translated to civilian.
Okay.
That's why I kind of re-educated.
Okay.
I couldn't take that and do that anywhere as a civilian.
Okay.
It's very specialized. Some people are able to take those assets and take those, skills and move them to civilian side, but I wasn't able to. Now, with that said, anybody who sees military on my resume, that they automatically are like, oh, she's going to be dependable. She's going to be responsible. She's going to be reliable. There's all these soft skills that are just automatic assumptions. I mean, that doesn't mean they're always correct, but they're, so I would say, like, in the civilian world, at like any, place, it's going to put you pretty high up compared to others. Just because of having those soft skills that most people wouldn't necessarily have or have developed in other ways.
Absolutely. And it keeps you kind of still in that club, in the sense of you were part of this at one point in your life. So there is an opinion or a thought process of people that have been in the military. You survived, you did this, you got through boot camp. They, saw something in you that made you get there. And so you do fit into some category in a lot of people's minds. It's funny that you've gotten into such an artistic field since being in such a pragmatic field that you're doing exactly by the book what you need to do. And now you've just opened this world of artism and, doing these wonderful creative outlets. Do you think there's a reason for that?
The military was never my passion or like
It's a stepping stone.
it was just, no, it's just like my job, right?
Okay.
At the end of the day, like like I have been doing design and making clothes and art and all that since
Forever.
well, I never stopped when I joined the military. I had less time to do it. But I was always coming up with like new creative things to do on the side. And then I do remember when I was working night shift, I was trying to make this dress and I was doing it all by hands because I can't sew it with a machine. And I remember like sneaking it into like night shift because it was really quiet and I'd be like in there trying to like sew it and get it finished.
Amazing.
You know, and sometimes like on night shift too, if it's quieter, that's when I would study my languages or, you know, so I think like I've always been on the creative side. It surprises people when they hear that I was military because it's just not me. But I think at the end of the day, it was never going to be my career, it was my job.
Okay. Top 3 things advice-wise that you would give to people in general, especially maybe women that are looking to get into this field.
So don't let anybody pressure you into a trade that you're not interested in.
Okay.
Hold out, wait, or fight back. Read about it so that you really understand it. Because my first question was, oh, it doesn't have math, does it? And then we're like, no. And then the first 2 years was all math. So, so really, really kind of educate yourself. The second thing I would say is stay in shape. You know, it's a lot easier to get through if you're physically fit and you're in shape. For women specifically, if you really like nails and makeup and your hair all done and everything, it might not be the best.
Yep.
And just talk to people. Talk to people and get their thoughts and their inputs and get some guidance. I think anything we do in life, we just need to educate ourselves.
I agree. Well, I'm really glad that things have evolved and you guys did stand up in that movement. We're successful in that suit. And now there are resources. There should be more, but there are resources for depression, PTSD, sexual violence, things like that. I remember speaking to your mom and she was telling me some of the stories that she endured, and that had changed until you got there. And then you had yours, and now I'm sure it's evolved for another. So I want to appreciate you being so open and sharing this with people, because it is, a club that we don't know about. So it's really nice for you to be able to share this with others, open the door, also warn people so that if you're interested, this is a great field to be in, but keep your eyes and ears and everything open, just like you should in every aspect of life. Yeah. Thank you so much, Della. And you're on Ottawa Designers. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Bye.